Hey everyone, it's Aaron. Welcome back to Ride XP, and we're back with another product feature today. So, I've really enjoyed having Apple CarPlay on my motorcycle. Sure, you can just tap your phone onto a quad lock, but after I killed my iPhone 12 on a big adventure ride, I didn't want to risk that again. It was a very expensive replacement. So, switching to a dedicated CarPlay screen has been a big quality of life upgrade for me personally. And I've been fortunate to test two good systems, the value for money CarPlay W603D and the premium Chigi AIO5 Lite. So when Aoocci first reached out to me about testing another motorcycle CarPlay Android Auto unit, I wasn't really interested. I'd already covered the two brands I mentioned before. But what changed my mind was their new BX because of its unique feature set. Basically, it has built-in blind spot detection, or BSD, that has dedicated radar hardware. As far as I know, during release, it was the only other established mass market brand offering radar-based BSD for motorcycles, and the only one with both BSD and an external GPS unit besides the best-in-class Chigi AIO series. I have noticed recently that a few other lesser-known brands have followed suit, but there's a lot of them, and I'm more confident that Aoocci have established themselves as a more reliable brand in the budget space. So for context, I have the Chigi AIO5 Lite installed on my Himalayan 450. With the optional tire pressure monitoring system added, that setup costs about 700 US dollars, though only about 30,000 pesos in the Philippines, which is significantly less. The Aoocci BX, on the other hand, can be had for as low as $299.25 with the discount codes that they gave me to share with you. And that's basically the headline if you want to know what makes this new model so interesting. So for full transparency, you should know that Aoocci sent me this unit for free so that I could test and showcase it for you guys. And I'll get a small commission if you buy through my link and discount code at no extra cost to you. But given that, since there's a bit of a conflict there in terms of them sending me this for free, I really do encourage you to check out other reviews for peace of mind. Specifically, there's guys like Big Rock Moto who have done an in-depth series on all the different brands of navigation systems, including Aoocci. Now, for my part, what I can contribute is that I can compare the BX directly to the Chigi AIO5 Lite and CarPlay W603D, which I've both used extensively. So quick recommendations, if you just want the TLDR, for the best value with all of the features, BSD, GPS, etc., then it's gotta be the Aoocci BX. Now, if you're looking simply for the best system that also happens to have local support here in the Philippines, then go for Chigi. I love the AIO5 Lite on my Himalayan. It's really very nice to use. It's noticeably more refined in both hardware and software. Just note that with the Chigi, as you might expect, a lot of the nice features that you would get with the cheaper options like TPMS, the cameras, and all of the other accessories that only Chigi offers, you're paying more for that. And if you want a similar system, you're looking at around 800 US dollars or so. Now, if you're just looking for the best budget option, if you just want to get basic functioning CarPlay Android Auto on your phone with a few additional features, if you don't need the blind spot detection, but you still want the cameras, then I think that you really can't beat Aoocci's popular C6 Pro. If you use my discount codes, which are also valid for the C6 series, then you can have the C6 Pro for just over 170 US dollars. Now, if you don't want to go for Aoocci, CarPlay I think is also pretty solid. They're just a tiny bit more expensive, but the hardware honestly also feels a little more durable. And I've used the W603D on my MT-07 for over a year in all kinds of conditions with no complaints and no noticeable quirks that I've noticed. You can see my full review of it, plus my discount code in a previous video. So with that, let's take a closer look at the Aoocci BX. Here's what you get inside the box. You have the main 5.5-inch screen that has a handy vibration dampener already included. That's unique to Aoocci. You get the wiring harness and all of the cables to connect everything. New units now come standard with an updated wiring harness that has a longer cable for more routing options and, very helpful, a waterproof cap to protect the cable when you pop off the screen. And then you also get all the tools you need to install the whole system. So installation of the BX is straightforward if a bit involved, since you need to route and connect the main screen, the front and rear cameras, the GPS module, and the 2.4 GHz millimeter wave radar. So yes, unlike Chigi's BSD, which uses AI image analysis from the cameras for its really good BSD, the Aoocci BX has dedicated radar hardware. It was the first and until recently the only one of its kind. This radar covers 20 meters distance, 9 meters width with a 75-degree angle. I'll show you how well that works later. Now, I thought that having real radar was genuinely cool, though to be honest, I'm not in love with how it's sticking out of my rear fender on a retro bike like my XSR 700. Another nice touch that the BX offers is a quick release mount. But it's just a simple manual system, not like you get with the Chigi AO6 or like the expensive GPS mounts where you have an electronic quick release that lets you kind of seamlessly swap it between bikes or use it in a car. The BX simply lets you pop off the screen for an extra layer of security and also to more easily access the micro SD card. Now, whether that's useful to you is another question, because at least here in the Philippines, I haven't experienced that these things tend to get stolen because they're hardwired to the bike and are pretty much useless without the rest of the components. Now, a useful new accessory that they provide now with every unit is a USB power cable, which means that you can use a 5V 2A or 5V 3A USB power supply instead of hooking it up directly to your battery. Now, taking a closer look at the main screen, of course what you get is a CarPlay and Android Auto interface with a 5.5-inch IPS display with 1000 nits of brightness. That's the same as the Chigi AO5 Lite. In bright sunlight, it is a bit hard to see, especially with that highly reflective screen. But for me, it's usable enough, as I want to be looking down at the screen as little as possible during a ride. Although a less reflective screen or screen protector would have been welcome. And of course, it's an auto brightness feature, so you don't need to worry about fiddling with the brightness. The screen is also IP68 waterproof. You can literally use it underwater, according to Aoocci. But personally, I wouldn't want to be deep enough in water on my bike to find out. Okay, so now let's go through the device and I'll walk you through the menus and different features as we see them.
Takes a while. I've already actually put my logo. They taught me how to do that. Okay, this is the main interface, so nothing much to say, just a nice clean interface, futuristic. So this will connect the CarPlay. This controls the front and rear camera. So my front camera is upside down, and unfortunately in this firmware you can't flip it because I've actually mounted my camera upside down, as you see there, just to have the cleanest possible install. So I'm just willing to live with that. Not a big deal to me because I won't be monitoring the front camera anyway. There's your rear camera. All right. This is to lock the video, which just kind of tells the system that's for like if there's an emergency and you don't want to lose that file. That just like a one tap, it locks that 1 minute clip. This takes a photo. This starts and stops the recording. Camera settings, so video duration, you can set it to 1 to 3 minutes. Post-recording settings, so this only controls the rear. I wish it could also control the front since my front is mounted upside down. Collision sensitivity, RCW, so I set mine to low. Again, I don't want too many alerts. Sentinel mode controls the sensitivity of Sentinel mode. I have mine set to medium. Recording switch, format SD card. All right, and here is where you can play back the footage. And what I like here is that there's a separate folder for the locked files, so like emergency record, so the files you want to see right away, or for the photos. And here, so you record again, you can actually use the hand controller here to take a photo or lock a video. Okay, so that's the camera menu. Radar settings, I already have my radar paired. So My radar is switched on. It's not mirrored because it's mounted right side up. Radar rear view, this turns on that if the radar, the blind spot radar detects something upcoming, it will switch to the rear camera. Buzzers to get the audio alert. And then of course settings, instrument. So this is the settings for Wi-Fi video if you wanna just connect the app. Tire pressure settings. Again, we have our tire pressure, then the thresholds for the front and rear tire with the tire pressure units. I actually had to update the firmware to get separate threshold settings for both the front and rear tires. Audio settings, speaker output, headphone output. Let's put it to speaker output because I wasn't hearing the alerts last time for the blind spot. GPS, this is just status of the GPS module, which is right there. Time format, 12 hours, 24 hours. I'm used to 12. So set the date and time. Language, speed units, and then reset. And that's about it. It's pretty straightforward, and the rest is really just the CarPlay screen, which I'll bring up in a second. We've got our Waze. Moto Navi is the app that this comes with. I don't know what it actually. Okay. So it's got its own like in-app navigation. We've got Spotify. So screen looks nice and bright. Yeah, and CarPlay works. Nothing much to say about that. Again, if you want to go back to the main screen, there.
One thing just worth noting is that the BX doesn't give you the rich amount of information that you get on the Chigi meters display, which can show you bike status at a glance, especially when paired with their optional OBD adapter. And you don't even get a battery voltage reading, which even the CarPlay unit displays. For me, personally, it's not a big deal, but I thought you might want to know that. Moving on to the tire pressure monitoring system. It works as it should. These small tire pressure monitors pair via Bluetooth and have replaceable batteries for convenience. Now, a funny story with this TPMS is that I thought they were experiencing a connection fault of some sort, at least the rear one, because it would occasionally display my XSR 700's rear tire as having zero pressure when it clearly wasn't flat. But it turned out in the end that that rear tire had a leaky valve, which was causing the wrong reading, and eventually it did go completely flat on the highway. So yes, the TPMS system pretty much works flawlessly. Let's talk about the video from the dashcam. It's about the same, I think, as the CarPlay rides, which is to say, not very high quality, not good enough to make content from, very prone to jello cam rolling shutter, but basically totally usable when you just need a record of an emergency. The Chigi again wins because it has a better quality electronically stabilized video with much less rolling shutter that you can kind of in a bind even use for content if you want. Now, if you have the option when it comes to the Aoocci, you should try to mount the cameras with somewhere with less vibrations. But on the XSR, there's not a lot of places to mount them, and I really didn't want to have to fiddle with it too much. I'll just live with the jello cam because again, the clips are just for emergency use for me. One problem I do run into is that the emergency recording feature triggers too often. This system, which is indicated by the yellow recording icon instead of the usual red, it saves clips into a separate protected folder where they won't be overwritten when the memory card fills up. Now, supposedly this should only be triggered by excess vibration, like when you might have an accident. However, during a normal Sunday ride on our normal bumpy roads here in Manila, like EDSA, the built-in G sensor would just cause it to trigger constantly. Now, it's not a huge problem. You still get your clips recorded either way. You don't miss any shots. In fact, you get to keep more shots, but it seems like a design flaw. And as far as I understand, it's not about where the cameras are mounted. The sensitivity of that emergency recording trigger from the G sensor just needs to be lowered. So, moving on, you also get app integration with the Moto Navi app. This allows you to wirelessly download the photos and videos of the BX without removing the SD card. It also conveniently allows you to update the device's firmware over the air. Alright, now it's time to talk about the marquee feature the dedicated radar-based blind spot detection. After testing, I can honestly tell you that it needs work. Because, well, basically, if you're not familiar, what it does is when a vehicle approaches you from behind on your left or right blind spot, it switches to the rear camera, or you can set it to switch to the rear camera, and it shows a red flashing alert on the left or right while emitting a loud beep to alert you of something coming up on your blind spot. However, after testing, I've found it's just not as consistent and reliable as Chigi's camera-based BSD, on which it is clearly modeled after. But that's the thing. Since you rely on BSD for your safety, that's kind of not ideal, if not a deal breaker. You need this to work consistently, but I found the radar BSD to be just too inconsistent, mostly staying silent even when vehicles were clearly approaching me from my blind spots at various speeds. And one time it even would trigger on the wrong side, as you see in this clip. Now, it's disappointing because I thought the separate radar hardware would give better performance than Chigi's software-based approach. The BSD is the main reason to choose the BX over Aoocci's own solid, affordable C6 Pro. But to be perfectly honest, and sorry to Aoocci, this version, this iteration of the BX is not quite living up to its promise. Now, Aoocci, to be fair, is quite responsive to user feedback compared to your typical big electronics company. I mean, that's the reason they've updated the wiring harness and they've given you the USB power option at no additional cost. So, my message now to Aoocci is you really need to quickly improve and refine your BSD functionality, whether through a firmware update or revised hardware. Moving on, the BX also has parking monitoring, which is another page directly out of Chigi's book. Sentinel Mode, which is similar to Chigi's Sentry Mode, uses the built-in G sensor to detect bumps or movements, which then triggers it to auto-record from both dashcams and then lock the footage. Now, the manual says it won't drain your battery, that once it detects that it drops below 11.8 volts, the system shuts off. So, just like with the BSD, you do get another previously Chigi-only feature at a much lower price. So I tested it on the medium sensitivity setting, and it started recording immediately upon just moving my bike from side to side, and immediately upon pushing it forward or backward with the engine off. Then I moved it down to the low setting, and I couldn't get it to trigger recording. So my guess is that it only starts if there's like a serious impact on the bike. So medium looks like the sweet spot, as I wouldn't want it to be any more sensitive to avoid unnecessary battery use and having too many video clips in that locked emergency recording folder. But do note that after a week of not using my bike, my CTEC comfort connector was blinking red, indicating low battery, and this was a brand new battery. And the only suspect I had for the battery drain was the Sentinel mode. However, I could be wrong about that. Your mileage may vary, but basically to be safe, after seeing that, I decided to set the sensitivity back down to low, and that hasn't given me any problems. However, you should also know that Sentinel mode triggers for extended periods of time when the bike is placed on a carrier at the back of a truck. So if transporting the bike, I suggest just popping off the BX using the quick release system to conserve battery. So in conclusion, all in all, the Aoocci BX is not a bad system. However, given that its main selling point, its marquee feature, blind spot detection, doesn't work as well as it should in this version of the device, my recommendation for now is to save money and choose their more affordable C6 Pro or other models. Again, with my discount codes, you can get a C6 Pro for less than $200 US. Again, I get a commission for that, but what matters more to me is that you make the buying decision that makes sense to you, and I'm happy to save you money if you go with Aoocci. Now, if you ask me, if it were me and I weren't given these devices for free by any of these companies, I would get the C6 Pro for my bikes. Chigi is the best, but you're paying a lot if you have more than one motorcycle like I do. And that's about it for this review. I had to go the brutally honest direction for this because, like, what credibility would I have with you guys if you got one of these and you experienced all of these problems? And Aoocci, if you're watching this, I am rooting for you guys to improve this system because it's a lot of value on paper. And yeah, I hope to see a BX V2 or maybe a firmware update in the near future. With that, I hope this helped, and I will see you all on the next episode of Ride XP.